Hi, everyone. Welcome. How's everyone doing here today? We'll let some people join in for the first minute here, probably. I was going to say happy Friday. It feels like a Friday to me for some reason, but it's only a Wednesday. It's one of
Yeah,
those weeks where things are so busy. Like, I feel like I've done so much work in the first 3 days of the week here. Surely it must be Friday.
it does definitely gives me Friday vibes.
Yeah, I feel the excitement of a Friday,
There we
let's
go.
say. There you go. Hey there, Mary.
Oh, Lisa, I see like a pop-up. Oh, okay, it disappeared now. Never
I
mind.
think that
There
was
was
the
a
chat. It was when I look at the chat for some reason, it's giving me a bit of
Oh,
a little
okay.
thing here. So just checking out the chat. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing here today on this lovely Wednesday afternoon? Thank you so much for joining me here today. So my name is Lisa. I am a partner success specialist here at SpacesEDU. And today we're going to explore how portfolios can do more than just document learning. We are going to dive into how they can actively power future readiness for our students. As we are all well aware, the landscape of education is evolving so quickly, and with it, so are the tools that the students need to succeed. And so portfolios, they are no longer just a collection of work. They are a dynamic, living document of growth and skills and future dreams, really. And that's what we're going to explore exactly here today in terms of showing how they can do that. So thanks for joining me. As I just mentioned, so my name is Lisa Stevens. Hi, everyone. I am a partner success specialist here at SpacesEDU, and my role here is to help schools and districts with the successful implementation of SpacesEDU. So we really work together to set a clear vision for the platform and the steps in place to make that vision a reality. And so to set the tone of today's presentation, here's a little bit about my background, or rather the skills that I've learned along the way that led me here to the position that I'm in today. So in my portfolio, starting with psychology, I've got a Master of Arts in Psychology, and that really helped me to build an understanding of course, learning and development, but also empathy and relationship building. I do have a diploma as well in public relations, and that honed my ability for effective communication. I do have a little bit of teaching experience as well, and that's where I learned the virtues and the skills of patience and understanding and adaptability and active listening as well. I have many years as well in tech support where I learned how to simplify complex information and diagnose and solve problems. And really, altogether, my interests lie in all of the above, also in yoga, both in poses and in philosophy, but at the core, the importance of well being and stress management. And so it's all of these skills in my portfolio that brought me here to where I am today. And so I feel my role at SpacesEDU is really a perfect marrying of education and technology and psychology. And I feel honored to support students to get them where they want to go as well with all of those skills. But enough about me. I'd like to get to know you all as well. So in the chat, please feel free to let us know your name, where you're tuning in from today, and maybe your role. But I'd love to know what is one skill or competency that you've learned throughout your work in education that you particularly cherish, something that you'll take with you for the rest of your life. I think we've seen Mary. Hey there, Mary. Nat loves creative thinking. Also love that. Fun skill, that one. Jeffrey, critical thinking. Absolutely. I think those two almost kind of go hand in hand. You got to have some creativity in your critical thinking skills too. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, everyone, and continue to put your kind of thoughts into the chat here. And before we dive into some of the core content, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping just to make sure we get the most of our time together, the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. And so to start, all of our sessions, including this one, will be recorded. So we will send you the recording after the session is done. If you do have any questions throughout the seminar here or the training here, please use the Q&A box for those questions, and we'll be sure to answer those or return to those. We do also have a chat box, so feel free to put your kind of thoughts, observations, questions, ideas in the chat box there as well. When the session is complete, we will be sending a follow-up survey. We'll send you the link at the end of the session today and also by email. We are all about reflecting on our learning here at Spaces EDU, so we would love to hear your feedback and apply it to what's next. So thank you in advance for providing us with that feedback. Now, let's take a look at the agenda for today's session. Here's what we'll be covering. So our agenda is designed to move from the why to the how, and admittedly a little bit of the where as well on Spaces EDU. So we will begin by setting the stage and exploring the foundational reasons for using portfolios. We will connect the dots to pedagogy, portfolios being more than just a digital filing cabinet, supporting the shift from simply knowing information to doing and showing how students can apply that knowledge in real world contexts. And then we will shift to portfolios in action to see what a portfolio looks like in the real world context, but also on the Spaces EDU platform. And next, we'll talk about creating future ready portfolios. What does that mean? This section is about understanding what makes a portfolio student driven, iterative, and reflective. And then finally, we'll get to the heart of the discussion, which is really around empowering students to envision their future, or perhaps envisioning themselves in the future. And this is where we'll do a backwards planning exercise and talk about how we can get students to be genuinely excited about their portfolios, not just as an assignment, but as a tool for their future selves. So we're going to prompt them with an activity to imagine their future self. And what would what would your portfolio look like? Speaking of the future, let's start with a powerful quote here from the World Economic Forum. And this may be familiar to some of you here already. 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 haven't been invented yet. And wow, 2030 is right around the corner, too. So, as we sort of chit chatted earlier today, the world is changing so rapidly. And as educators, our mission is to prepare students for a future that we can't even fully imagine or grasp just yet. So we can no longer focus solely on students' retention of academic content. The future really requires them to master essential transferable skills like collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, creative thinking. So portfolios give students a powerful voice in their learning journey, and it builds them a really solid foundation for what's next. And so this leads me to a question I'd love for you to consider and share your thoughts in the chat here. Based on that last slide and your own experience as an educator, what skills do you believe that every student should graduate with to be ready for the future? I think some of those we've mentioned already, those critical thinking skills and then creative thinking skills. I think adaptability is a big one personally, and resiliency. Love that. Yeah, critical thinking as well, for sure. And so we'll explore a few of those other skills in mind as we go along here, but it's those kinds of durable skills that we want those portfolios to capture and reflect on. And so that kind of brings me to some of the key points of today's presentation. Firstly, that portfolios, they do give students a powerful voice and a solid foundation for their future, as I mentioned. But secondly, digital portfolios are really valuable tools for schools and districts to support their students to build a body of evidence that reflects their student growth, their purpose, and those future ready skills. So now let's take a look at a pedagogical model that helps us to understand the value of this approach. Yeah, Vicky, I love the call out for those core competencies there. Vicky, I imagine you might be from British Columbia. And collaboration and joy in what they're doing. Oh, I love that, Mary. I love that. Joy is important. And so with this here, so this is a Miller's Pyramid of Clinical Competence. It is a great framework for thinking about student development of skills. Also offering a clear roadmap for how portfolios actually can really effectively capture and showcase that growth at every level, but with kind of specific emphasis on the top there, kind of a cherry on top for the shows how and does. And so this pyramid here, it does outline 4 levels of learning, which goes from knows to knows how to shows how and then does. And so a project might show us what they know how to do, or sorry, to start with a traditional test or a quiz that shows how a student knows. And then from there, we've got maybe a project where the student can show how they know how to use that information in kind of a controlled environment. But when we bring in that portfolio there, that allows students to move up the pyramid to shows how and or even does. So it's a really perfect medium for a student to demonstrate the application of knowledge and skills in those authentic contexts, like a collaborative project or volunteer experience or work-based learning activity, or even just in extracurricular activities. And so each piece of evidence in that portfolio contributes to a comprehensive narrative of the student's learning and their future readiness as well. And so by using portfolios, we can encourage students not just to learn and demonstrate what they know, but to document and reflect on how they apply those skills to make an impact. And they can take that portfolio with them as a tool to open those opportunities to make an even greater impact. And so I did want to share a few examples of what this could look like for students in your classrooms. So let's take a student in maybe a science class here. So the student in your science class, they do know how to define the carbon cycle and its major components. Moving up to knows how, the student is able to draw a diagram of that carbon cycle and explain the flow of carbon through those different ecosystems. From there, the student can show how. The student designs and presents a research project on how deforestation impacts the carbon cycle in a specific region and has data to support those findings. That would be awesome to showcase in a portfolio. But then there's also the does. Where the student participates in a school-led tree planting initiative or maybe a local conservation group where they apply that knowledge to contribute to carbon sequestration efforts in their community. Or perhaps a student in your math class. So the student, they know how to define those geometric shapes and recall the formulas for area and perimeter. They would also hopefully know how to calculate the area and perimeter of a shape and maybe solve for missing dimensions in a real world problem. But moving up to showing how the student can use those principles to create a detailed blueprint of a structure, maybe a garden shed or a small garden in the back of the house, and explains how their design choices explains their design choices in the space given to them. And then putting that in their portfolio, they can even go ahead and volunteer at the local Habitat for Humanity project, where they use their understanding of those principles and measure and cut materials for a real construction project. And even there, perhaps they're pulling in some of those skills from maybe their shop class or their design class, or maybe from biology with the plants that they've chosen to put in their backyard. And so, or in that project there rather. So really the portfolio can show that cross-curricular application of skills as well. And then lastly here, just another example of perhaps a student in your English class. So the students here, they do know how to define a persuasive essay and identify those key components like the thesis and the supporting evidence and the call to action. They then know how to maybe analyze another persuasive text. They identify the arguments and the rhetorical devices used to kind of influence the reader there. And then they can show how. So they take that knowledge and they write a persuasive essay on a topic that they care about, maybe school funding or environmental policy, supporting the earlier student there with the carbon cycle, and submits that to a school newspaper or maybe a local writing contest or something like that. And lastly, for does the student actively, maybe they campaign for maybe a student council position. So they write and deliver persuasive speeches to create a campaign to influence the students in their school. And so all this to say, this is a framework. It's a powerful way for students to it's a powerful framework to guide students beyond the classroom. And so we want to encourage students to show we want to encourage students to show and do as well. So it is our role as educators to encourage them to apply what they know to the real world. And that could be, and again, those extracurriculars or anything that interests them or is important to them, or something they do every day anyway, whether that be at a part-time job or at school. The goal isn't just to create an essay for a grade. It is to equip them with the tools to take action and influence the world around them and document it in their portfolios as well. So what I'm going to go on to next here is to show some of those future portfolios in action. So let's bring portfolios to life by looking at a real world example here. And so this is the story of Sanna, a student whose digital portfolio actually landed her a job. And fun fact, that job was here at SpacesEDU. And so her portfolio, it wasn't just a resume, it was a curated narrative of all of her skills and experiences. And so her portfolio included her personal story, to which I learned that Sanna is both a karate master and a fashion icon, where she showcased her projects and demonstrated her skills in action. Instead of just listing communication skills, she included a short video to show her personality and what really drives her. And so she showcased her projects, her club leadership roles, her competitions that she was involved in, and reflections on the idea, impact, results, and what she learned as well. She showcased her professional experience by specifically stating those real world projects within them. And so she embedded examples of specific times that she collaborated or problem solved or took a leadership role. And so Sana's story here, it shows that a portfolio is more than just a collection of work. It is a powerful tool that allowed her to move from simply saying, here's what I can do to let me show you what I can do. And if you'd like, Tatiana, if you haven't already, if you do want to go ahead and share Sana's story in the chat there, please go ahead. Oh, you have already.
It's there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, Mary, you use the same technique to show them about archaeology. And they did their own dig. Oh my goodness, Mary. I'm so curious where you're coming in from, Mary. I think you actually mentioned it at the top. You're coming from Marysville. Okay, interesting. That is so fun. I wish that I was your student there, Mary. I love that. And so with that, with Sana and her portfolio as well, it also gave us as a team here as Spaces EDU, it's the portfolio that really had Sana. She stood out with that. And it gave our team here a really multi-dimensional view of not only her skills, but her personality and her creativity and her drive. Those are qualities that a resume just, it can't capture. So we can guide our students to do the same by helping them to choose and reflect on their most meaningful work. And so again, Sana's story here is a great example of showing how, but let's get our students to really embrace that as well. So let's look at some key strategies to get them excited about the process, thanks to Sun here again. So let's get students to, firstly, start with their story. So portfolios should reflect not just what the student has done, but who they are. So they can start with their personal values and experiences and their goals as well. With the portfolios, we want to make sure that we curate and don't dump. So more isn't better, less is more here. So choose strong, meaningful projects that are relevant to the student's goals. Keep it simple. So with portfolios, it's helpful that they follow a clear structure so that the viewers can easily navigate the work. And we'll return to that in a little bit, what that clear structure could look like. We want to make it visible as well. So we want to embed videos and images and links and process documents and designs to really showcase that work in action. We do also want to make sure that, the students have fun with it. Let their creativity flow through and remember that this is a living document that will grow with the student. It is iterative and it is forever a work in progress. So it doesn't have to be perfect from the start. And I love that, Mary, as well. I think that portfolios are really perfect for that project-based learning as well. So next, I'd love to show you another portfolio in action here, and that is student Cheyenne. Now, Cheyenne, she is a hypothetical CTE student, so not a real student here, but she is enrolled at a graphic design program at her technical high school. And so my colleague Tatiana has shared Cheyenne's portfolio. So please go ahead and follow that link there. And this is Cheyenne's portfolio. So this is that external link that you can all take a gander through here. But I'm actually going to show you Cheyenne's portfolio from the perspective within Spaces EDU from a teacher's perspective. So with this portfolio here, I do just want to mention, I do think that it is still kind of a work in progress for Cheyenne. So I think that there are some opportunities for growth here that will go together as a team throughout this presentation. Now, Cheyenne, throughout the year, she is adding her work into this portfolio with a clear structure to show her skills and competencies within clearly defined sections of that portfolio. So it does really portray a holistic view of a future ready student. Now, those sections, you'll see those on the left-hand side of the page here, starting with a section for skills and competencies, personal growth plan, work and learning experience, recognition and achievements, always worth celebrating, and guidance and mentorship. And lastly, the certifications and credentials as well. And so let's take a look at a specific post within this portfolio here. So with that certification and credentials here, so kind of like how I started the presentation today, yes, I do have this certificate, or yes, I do have this diploma, but what did I learn along the way? And what are those 21st century skills and competencies that I learned outside of just the content? So same with Cheyenne here. So she has, it's great that she's uploaded a clear copy of her certification as proof, but more importantly, it's those key takeaways and how she intends to apply them. So it's just sort of reflecting on that process of the certification completion here. Now, perhaps next, let's navigate to a post where she was able to apply, or hopefully she learned what to apply from that certification. And let's take a look through that portfolio here. Maybe let's go to the work and experience section here. This one looks cute. Freelance logo project for a local business. So let's take a look at this post here. And so what we're seeing in this post, so she has uploaded quite a few artifacts, which is great. So with the posting process here, you are able to upload up to 10 media attachments to the post. So that does share a wonderful story. So we are able to see another great facet of the portfolio is showing that process and not just the final product rather, which is great. She has reflected a little bit on those communication skills, which is wonderful. But I think I'd like to motivate her to expand a little bit more here. I think there's more that we can kind of say with her experience here with this logo creation. So as a teacher, what I can go and do is I can leave a comment on the post within the portfolio. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to encourage Cheyenne perhaps to, expand a little bit more on those design principles that we just took a look at. What questions did you ask those clients at the beginning of the design? Did you provide them with multiple options? What did that look like? And I'm also going to provide a link for her to support her in those reflection questions there as well. All right. And I've commented on Cheyenne's post there, so she can kind of take that feedback and apply that to maybe a second post, or even edit this post here to make that process even clearer for the viewer. And so I want to mention here as well, so you are all taking a look right now on the screen of the platform from a teacher's perspective. All of the feedback that I'm giving within this portfolio, it is internal to the student and the teacher only. So you won't see that those comments or feedback on Cheyenne's external portfolio, but again, she can sort of behind the scenes take that feedback and edit the posts within her live portfolio there to share externally. And so with this portfolio, I'm not going to go through, each and every post here. So I do encourage you to sort of take a gander through that portfolio. As you take a look at that portfolio, just kind of ask yourself while you're taking a look through it, what does this portfolio tell you about the student? What does it tell you about Cheyenne? What are the strengths and skills that are evident in this portfolio? And what stands out as those kind of job ready skills? Is she showing us also what she can really do? And does this portfolio prepare her for the future, whether that be for an internship or work or higher education or just any of the goals that she has in her life? And do you think that there's any opportunities for growth here? So feel free to add your thoughts or comments in the chat, but something to always be mindful of as you support your students with their portfolios. And so, what I'd like to discuss from here is how we as educators at various levels can support students and their portfolios and sort of ensuring that those portfolios show those personalities and show a diverse set of skills and competencies and application of those. So, as educators, our role is to help students understand what makes for quality evidence and how to demonstrate their proficiency over time. So, this is a really core component of competency based learning. Where we can move beyond kind of a single test or score or assessment, but looking at a student's holistic growth and skill development. It's about empowering students to become the architects of their learning narrative and their future as well. So this quote here sort of brings us to our role as educators. How do we, as teachers and leaders, guide our students through this process to make for those most impactful and future ready portfolios? Our role as educators here is to guide and not just to grade. Here at SpacesEDU, we are all about growth over grades. And so we can support students by providing a clear structure for portfolios to start with our portfolio templates feature that we just took a look at. Now, the goal is to make it easy for students to understand what makes for a future ready student. And then we can guide them in reflecting on that and showing those real world examples of that or giving them examples of how to apply certain skills and competencies to the real world. So with Spaces EDU, district administrators can firstly create the structure of that portfolio for students with dedicated sections. And as if there's any district admins or kind of school admins in the room here, what does a future ready student look like in your district? And so you can organize that portfolio with that vision laid out in those different portfolio sections. And so within each of those sections, district administrators can also attach portfolio resources so that when students jump into the portfolio and they're ready to make a post, they're out in the world, they've got their, Space EDU app open on their phone, they're ready to take a picture on the job. When they get to that portfolio section, they know exactly what constitutes quality evidence of their future readiness. So within that portfolio template, we can provide them with guidance on what constitutes quality evidence, encouraging regular reflection, giving them ideas to, what makes a perfect post in their portfolio. And we can also help them by kind of linking their portfolio artifacts to their personal academic and career aspirations, which helps them to kind of see that real world value of their work. And so I'm going to show you what this all looks like in the platform from the district admin perspective as we create those portfolio templates. So I will go ahead and navigate back to the platform here. And I am going to switch over to my admin account from my teacher account here to show you that creation of the portfolio template. And so in the robust admin account that we've got here, I'm going to navigate to the portfolio templates screen. And let's take a look at that same portfolio that Cheyenne was in earlier. So again, this portfolio was created by the district admin team and assigned to a school within the district. So going to edit that portfolio template here. Starting at the top, we do want to make a very sort of clear name for that portfolio, but also the sort of goals and objectives for that portfolio so that students jump into that portfolio for the first time. They understand what this is all about and what they can get excited about posting into their portfolio. We are able to attach as well supporting resources to the very top of the portfolio. So we've got some of those skills for students to reflect on, and even an example of kind of a perfect student portfolio of what your CTE learning journey portfolio could look like here. As we continue to navigate through, now there are some kind of visibility and access, or access rather, toggles here around kind of which schools this should be assigned to, which grades this can be assigned to, how students can support, their student or see other students' portfolios in the district. We do also have an element here of assessment. Now, I am going to return to this in the next slide here, but just know that if you are interested in having an assessment piece to the portfolios, this is something that you can enable at the specific portfolio template level. As we continue through to the portfolio here, this is where the administrators make those different sections of their portfolio. So again, this is something that we just saw in Cheyenne's portfolio, but she had that structure whereby she would be posting her work into this section of skills and competencies, personal growth, work and learning experience, recognition and achievements, guidance and mentorship, and certifications and credentials. So districts can create a template with up to 20 sections for students to post their work in. But with these sections, I do just want to actually double click here or focus in on some of those supporting materials that we had discussed. So for example, if a student were to go to the skills and competencies section of their portfolio and they see skills and competencies and they say, okay, like what? What skill or what even does competency mean? I don't know. So what we want to do as we set students up for success with this portfolio is we do want to make sure that we do actually attach those supporting resources. So to give you some inspiration here, what we've got is, what are those skills that we want you to display? Here's an example. Let us know about your character qualities of curiosity or persistence and grit. I love that one. Grit's a good one too. Those competencies that we spoke about today, the creative thinking, the communication, collaboration. Here are some ideas for you to go on here. So a great starting point for students as they start to think about, what am I going to post in this section of the portfolio? I think we had a teacher in here that mentioned those core competencies. So I know that core competencies are a big focus in British Columbia. And so there in this section here as well, we can also put some reflection prompts for students. Let's have them reflect on those different facets so they can answer some of these questions as they post within the section of the portfolio. A few other ideas here as well. We can put a post or a photo rather of kind of what is a perfect post in this section of the portfolio. So here's an example of a student who's showing her public speaking skills. And so what makes for a really solid post in that section with the attachments and the reflections and the connection to those skills. So another supporting resource for the students here. And then if you'd like, if the assessment is kind of a part of your goal here for the portfolio, you could also attach a rubric to that section so that the student knows kind of what does quality evidence entail here. And we'll get to that more in a moment. And so you can do the same for each section of the portfolio. So again, as the students go to each section of the portfolio, they know exactly what to post and they have that inspiration there right at the source. And so that's a quick run through here of that portfolio template feature for the district admin team to create. So what we can do as well as educators is that we can provide guidance along the way by offering feedback, of course, as I showed earlier, and also maybe setting, those proficiency-based checkpoints as well. So instead of a single due date or a test or an assignment, a portfolio is that living document that students should be encouraged to revisit on an ongoing basis. And so what we can do from the teacher account and from the admin account as well, so we can provide comments on their work. And those comments should really focus more on being a conversation or motivation for students rather than kind of just a formal assessment alone. So it's by providing that feedback that it should never be about a final grade. It's about giving students the chance to revise their work and kind of reflect on their work and grow from that feedback and show that growth over time. And so this ties back to that idea that I'm sure we all know and love, that growth mindset. We want to instill that in our students here. And so providing that continuous guidance and feedback, we help the students to see their portfolio not just as again, a static grade, but that iterative process of learning and development. And so, an effective way that we can support the students here too, as I kind of mentioned when we were adding those resources there, is that we can attach rubrics to the portfolio if that's, again, a part of your practice. The rubric, it does really act as a clear roadmap, showing students exactly what constitutes strong evidence of learning and kind of how to select for their best work as well. And so it moves that process from really a guessing game. I'm hopping into this portfolio. Where do I even start? What do I even do? What should I even post? And then it kind of turns that into that intentional effort and that vision for students. And so this kind of ongoing sort of formative feedback is a critical part of the learning process and of showing that growth and development. And it helps the student to understand, you know, how their learning connects to their goals and how they're progressing towards them as well. And we're going to revisit the importance of setting those goals in just a moment, but I am going to navigate back here for a moment to Spaces EDU to navigate to Cheyenne's portfolio to kind of connect the sort of comments and feedback and assessments within the portfolio there as well. And so I'm going to head back to the platform here. I'll just exit out of this portfolio and back into my teacher account. And I'm going to navigate back here to the portfolios, looking at that CTE Learning Journey portfolio here. So what you're looking at now, just in case you're curious, this is where I'm able to, as a teacher, kind of see the progress of this portfolio for my students. So I call this the sort of portfolio table or the portfolio grid. So I'm able to see my list of students here. I can see how they're progressing, how many posts and reflections and competencies in media and everything that they're kind of adding to their portfolio throughout the year. So I can see that, Cheyenne and Angelica, they're progressing well in their portfolio. I've got Lisa, the student here, progressing well in her portfolio. So this is something that we can sort of, support and monitor students through this portfolio feature here as well. But going into Cheyenne's portfolio here specifically, if we take a look at, let's go back to that work and learning experience section here, right? So I had provided some feedback for Cheyenne earlier, maybe some of those motivating questions, tell me more about the, importance of attention and detail, attention to detail in graphic design. And, here we were earlier today to give her a little bit more motivation and kind of those guiding steps to think a little bit more about applying those design principles. So again, that's your role as an educator to kind of keep encouraging and asking questions and getting them to think critically through their portfolio here. And if it is a part of your practice for this portfolio, again, at the very top here, we do have that measurement tool or that proficiency-based assessment tool kind of loaded into this portfolio here. So, we're just getting started in the year. Maybe let's say it's October right now. And so we're kind of just getting started with portfolios. And I'm just going to say that right now, I think Cheyenne is maybe at a developing level as she, posts and shows her work and learning experience. So right now she's kind of developing, but let's keep checking back to this. Let's keep supporting her along the way so that eventually when she starts to show those reflections and, talking about those skills and showing those skills and applying those skills, she'll eventually move along to maybe a proficient share-worthy portfolio to take with her at whatever endeavor she'd like to go through next. And so as an educator, again, with each of these sections here, you can go ahead and provide that proficiency-based assessment for the students. All right, so with that, now that we've talked about our role as educators here, I do want to talk a little bit about the students' role in this process as well, and how they can actively participate and curate their portfolios, with our help, but getting them excited about their portfolios as well. And so as educators, we do play that guiding role, but at the end of the day, it is the student's role to, create their future. And this is where that shift in mindset really happens, I think. We have to empower students to see the portfolio not as a chore, but as a tool for their own success. This is shaping their future here. So let's get them excited about that. And so the student's role, starting at the beginning of the year, let's think here. Let's connect this portfolio to our goals. Link it to our personal and academic aspirations. It is their role. Once they've got those goals in mind, let's work towards those goals. But along the way, let's celebrate that growth. So we want them to recognize and acknowledge their progress. So keep checking in with them on that and talk to them about, how much they've grown as they kind of, put those learning experiences into that portfolio. And so that's again where we can get them really excited to have them understand that by building their portfolio, they are becoming, those confident communicators who can tell their unique story. And by the way, what you are looking at on the right here, you are seeing a presentation mode of our portfolio. So a student can confidently not only share the URL to their portfolio, but they can actually confidently speak to and showcase and present their portfolios as well, and they can present, and it's by presenting and sharing those portfolios and curating those portfolios that they are becoming those self-aware and self-advocating learners as well. So they are able to reflect on their growth, set meaningful goals for themselves, and it's that sort of portfolio that is that tangible representation of their learning journey. And so to help with this, we can also use a powerful pedagogical strategy, another one called backwards design. Now, for those of us that may have just attended the amazing backwards design workshop or the assessment workshop earlier today, this likely looks familiar to you. I did just want to revisit it again, just for the purpose of portfolios here. And so it's about applying the principles of backwards design to portfolios to help us create a clear and purposeful path for students. So instead of, just assigning an assignment or a task and a test and kind of hoping for the best, it's this approach here that encourages us and the students to start with the end in mind. And here's how you as educators rather can kind of walk through these three steps with your students. So the first step here to identify those desired results. This is to, get students to think big here. This isn't just about the next assignment or, what grade I want to get at the end of this semester. This is about those long-term goals. And so the first step of backwards design is to define the why. For the portfolio, this means getting students to envision their future. Ask them where they want to be in a few years. Maybe it's a specific career, or maybe a university program, or a personal passion, or maybe they want to, volunteer at a local play or something like this. So ask them about that, and then ask them a powerful question. What do you think is the portfolio that gets you there? Or what do you think are the skills and the competencies that will get you there? So what that really does at the beginning of the year is it really turns this portfolio from, a school project, just another thing I got to do, to a strategic tool for their future to kind of put that in the direction of those goals that they've stated. So once we have that sort of goal in mind, let's determine what, acceptable evidence might be. And so once that destination is clear, we need to identify the skills that are required to get them there. So with that future in mind, the next step here is to break down the journey into, those concrete pieces of evidence. What skills and competencies does the student need to develop and achieve that dream there? So for example, I think in the slide before we had Alex, our student. Alex really wanted to be, a video game designer. And so Alex knows it's more than just learning how to code. Alex or the student needs to show how, to show that evidence of problem solving and collaboration and creativity. And so we talked about maybe an English student earlier today as well. So maybe that English student, they want to become a journalist. So they need to demonstrate those strong communication, critical thinking, and those polished writing voice as well. And so it's this step here that helps us and the student identify what those kind of core competencies are that the portfolio should showcase, and we'll work towards that throughout the year. And lastly, we do have the plan, learning experiences, and instruction. And so that kind of brings the final step here, brings everything back to the classroom and the present moment here. And so finally, we do want to connect those desired skills that we've identified, kind of using those in our day-to-day instruction. And so how can we as educators intentionally design our lessons to help students develop and also reflect on those 21st century skills? Like again, collaboration, critical thinking, those three C's seem to be my favorite examples that I like to bring up here. But more importantly, how can we encourage them to also document and reflect on those skills as they do the work that they're already doing? It's not enough for a student to just complete a group project. They need to also reflect on, their role in the project, the challenges that they faced, and how they honed their communication skills to work through those challenges, how they contributed to the outcome. So it really ensures that every assignment or everything that we're kind of doing in our class, it kind of serves a dual purpose here. It, of course, meets those curriculum goals that we all have to work towards, but it also provides that meaningful evidence for the student's portfolio. And so it's really about making that learning visible and purposeful for the student's future here and for their portfolio. And so with that, I'd like to sort of tie this together. I would just like to provide you here with kind of a checklist in terms of what makes for a purposeful portfolio. And so your role, again, for the students, it's sort of guiding the students to understand as they kind of go through their portfolio here, what makes your portfolio meaningful? Does it show growth? Does it show your best effort? And does it show that you are future ready? And so starting with, does the portfolio clearly tell a story, showing their identity, their growth, and their voice? Does the portfolio highlight the learning process? So including those reflections, revisions, challenges, and not just the final product? Are there enough diverse entries in the portfolio to showcase those multiple competencies and skills? So we want to have, different examples of those different 21st century skills, but also displaying those skills with projects and, goal setting, feedback, peer collaboration, extracurricular, volunteer work, part-time work, work-based learning. So a lot of sort of diverse entries to bring that portfolio to life there. And are the different artifacts included in the portfolio as well? So we want to make it visually rich. We want to make sure that there's written work and images and videos and links. And again, there can be multiple in one post to really share that story there. And with that, are there sort of key elements of the portfolio that have been demonstrated? And sort of by that, I mean, is there a clear structure for that portfolio? Does that really kind of guide the reader into that sort of narrative of the student? And so that's something to consider as you build that portfolio. And is that portfolio, again, organized in a way that is clean and intuitive and easy to navigate for the viewer, but also for the student as they go into each of those sections there? And then as well, so lastly here, and this actually ties into your note there, Mary, but is the content current and regularly updated to reflect meaningful progress? So Mary had mentioned here, she does notebooking with every subject, and I love that. And I think with portfolios here, we have to be really intentional about these. And so I think it's really important that you might perhaps want to, as an educator, in your classroom, maybe set aside an hour a week or maybe a seminar a month, really focused on that purposeful portfolio focus. So during that dedicated time, you can add, or students rather, can add content, iterate on that content, look at the feedback that you've provided, make adjustments to some of their current posts there. Maybe they can even remove some of those posts that no longer serve the student. Again, we want to make sure we're not dumping everything into the portfolio. We do want to make sure that it's polished and iterative there. So I think that is really intentional. It's really great to kind of have that purposeful time to focus on the portfolios in that classroom setting. And so to kind of go back to the Miller's model here as well, does the portfolio show how? Does the portfolio show that the student does? That not only they're showing their foundational knowledge, but applying that knowledge and demonstrating their mastery through those kind of authentic scenarios in the classroom and in the real world as well. Now, based on everything that we've just talked about for the last little bit, and you can put this in the chat, or you can just kind of think about this in your own brain here today. But what is one thing that your students are already doing? Maybe a classroom project, or a club, or a hobby, or something that you're planning, in your classroom as you get the year started here. What is something that those students are going to be doing that deserves to be captured and celebrated and reflected on within a portfolio? And so take a moment to think about that. And again, if you want to share in the chat, please do. I am curious to kind of see how you're incorporating portfolios in your own classroom contexts. Mary, for example, I would love to see a student's portfolio of them taking an archaeological dig there. That would be amazing. And so as you're thinking about your answers or planning for the year ahead here, just remember those sort of key messages from today, that portfolios, they give the students a powerful voice, and they're also that, again, that invaluable tool for building that body of evidence that reflects their growth and their future ready skills. And so as we help students to capture those moments, we can get them excited about asking that question, this question here for students at the beginning of the year. Instead of asking, what are you going to put in your portfolio? We can ask, what are you excited to share in your portfolio this year? It's this subtle shift in language, I think, that makes the portfolio about them and their interests, and again, not just an academic requirement. And so for those that may be feeling that sort of natural overwhelm at the beginning of the school year, I know that I do, just know that the work that your students are already doing, or the work that they'll already be doing this school year, it can be tied to those specific skills and competencies. The key is just to help them see those connections. And so a few other examples on the screen here, that character design video, it's not just about the stop motion graphics. It is about, patience and perseverance and creativity and innovation. Or the science lab report. That's not just about chemistry or knowledge of the periodic table. It is about the application of that in the problem solving and critical thinking to form that, hypothesis, and the testing and confirming or disproving it. Even the school recital, it's not just the ability to sing in key, although I imagine that is important to the listener. It is all about as well, collaboration and creativity and fearlessness as well. And as is that portrait photo project as well. So that portfolio is where they can tell that story. And because ultimately, every single piece of work that the student adds to their portfolio, it tells a part of a much bigger story. And that is the sort of core theme as well that I would love to take away here today for students too, is that every artifact that they share in their portfolio is a piece of the puzzle for their future selves. So every piece of learning, every trial, every tribulation, every moment of reflection on growth, every project, every collaboration, and the fun that comes with that group work, it all comes together to make a future ready student. And so as we guide them to reflect, they begin to understand not just what they've learned, but who they are becoming. And the portfolio is that tangible record of that journey that they can take with them on their path to what's next. And to kind of end the presentation here today, I'd love to give you some supporting resources on your journey of what's next as you support your students with their portfolio. So a few resources here for you. So we do have a Help Center article for creating and managing those portfolio templates for any administrators in the room here. We do also have a Help Center article for getting started with portfolios for teachers and for students. This third resource here, and we'll be sending this all to after the presentation, but we do have an introduction to digital portfolio presentation slides. So if you are getting students excited about their portfolios, we do have a slide deck that you can sort of, cater to your classroom to get students excited about their portfolios. There is also a resource here for creating quality posts in student portfolios so they know what makes for a good post that kind of tells that story of learning. And then lastly, I do have a handout here for the checklist for the purposeful portfolios. And that's all for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I loved seeing all of the feedback and questions and comments in the chat, so I really, really appreciate it. We hope that you found this session helpful, and I hope that you're really excited to start to use some of these portfolio tools this school year. And we'll be also sending you a survey shortly, so let us know how you did with some descriptive feedback so we can improve for our future webinars. And feel free to reach out to us with any other questions or thoughts. Thank you so much, everyone. This was really fun and wishing you a great start to the school year as well.